Just like that, the WestJet pilot deal is ratified. All the while, WestJet is partnering with the Calgary Stampede for 5 more years, and you might start to see some older pilots. Let's talk about it today on episode 9 of Just Plain Fun. Well, welcome back to the podcast, everybody. I'm your host, Hunter, today. So glad that you could be here on this episode 9 of Just Plain Fun. Hope everyone's having a great weekend so far. I myself have been really enjoying some of the nicer weather that we've been having and the sunshine. Was able to get out for a walk today and went on a picnic with my wife before she had to go to work. So it's been really, really enjoyable so far. Hope everyone else has been able to get outside wherever you're at and just, enjoying this now second weekend in June, which is already actually pretty crazy to say. It seems that this month has been flying by as well. However, we do have a lot of fun stuff to go over, so without further ado, let's get right into it. And starting off, obviously, with a bit more of a recent story, but a very, I think, happy story, and that is that the WestJet pilot agreement has been ratified. It's been reached with the ALPA, and so definitely some exciting news there. Obviously, we knew that this was coming, but now the official terms have been released, given the fact that it has been ratified. So a couple of key pieces that we'll pull out of this one here, starting with the agreement effective dates from January 1st, 2023, and is in place until December 31st, 2026. So they ended up on a 3-year agreement, which is really, really nice to see, given the fact that we now likely won't have to worry about a strike again for the foreseeable future, which is really nice and gives, I think, that needed stability back to WestJet and to the aviation sector here in Canada. There's been obviously a lot of nervousness surrounding the idea of a strike with an airline and what that did to people's travel plans. So I think you're definitely going to see WestJet really try and bring back that trust that they had from people previously. And I think that you're really going to see, like I said, a lot of people feel more confident booking their flight with them now, knowing this agreement is in place until at least the 1st of January 2027. So with that stated, though, there is a couple major pieces that are sticking out, obviously, in this agreement. And I think one of the biggest ones, and one that I've seen a lot of people on Twitter talk about it, that some people have messaged me about, mentioning that they had flights with Swoop, obviously, and we did talk about this a little bit on the previous episode, but it has been confirmed officially now that Swoop will cease to exist at the end of October this year. That's going to happen by October 28th, and at that point, Swoop will operate its existing network up until then, and at that point they'll all move over to WestJet. That includes all the employees and then all of the fleet. They're moving therefore from a 16 aircraft fleet all the way up to 180, and so that will certainly give a lot of, I would say, opportunities to people in order to be able to fly on a larger scale, have a lot more bases, have a lot more options in where you're traveling. But certainly I think there is an impact that we shouldn't forget to mention, and that is that the ultra low cost carrier option for Canadians may be slipping away. There has been some assurances issued by various WestJet representatives and some statements saying that, they're going to continue to offer an ultra low cost option. So what that looks like, we can't obviously know that yet, but, you might see something similar to how Delta Airlines, for example, does it, where you've got your basic economy, premium economy, and then up into their business classes and first classes, etc. So maybe that's the piece that WestJet will be going with. But again, we won't know that until we can see. I'm really hoping, truthfully, that there is still that low-cost option for Canadians, with the economy definitely in a slum here right now, and a lot of people trying to save wherever they can. It's really nice for people to have that low-cost travel option. So hopefully WestJet sticks up on their word and will still continue to be willing to offer that low-cost option. So with that, again, of course, only time will tell us if that's the case. But, they, I think, would have no reason not to. I think they're going to expand their market share by doing so, and you're still giving Canadians that choice between if they want to get that lower cost option or move up to a bit higher service and get a bit more for it, such as a checked bag and a free little soda, if you want to call it that, on the flight, and maybe even pretzels or chips. So with that said, though, again, That's kind of been the one major piece that everyone was awaiting to see what was going to happen to Swoop, when this was going to take place. Before, there was a bit of rumblings that it wasn't going to be for at least a year, but now with it being October 28th, that's only actually a few short months away, just about 4.5 months from the day that I'm recording this episode. So people that have their flights booked on Swoop, you can be assured that flight is still going to run if it's up until that 28th of October. And then after that, you will definitely be emailed new flight details, and you'll be flying with WestJet at that point. But everyone that's got their flight up to that point, it's not that you have to worry and scramble trying to figure out new plans. Those planes are still going to be operating. Pilots are still going to be flying. And hopefully it's a seamless transition with technology and everything that we obviously know sometimes can go wrong. Hopefully it pans out really, really well for them. Moving on to our next story, one that I think is quite cool, being in Alberta myself, and that is the partnership with Calgary Stampede and WestJet. So they've had this agreement for quite a few years, in 2003 actually, so on the 20-year mark here, and they've just done another 5 years, but that's actually going to be where they are the official airline of the Calgary Stampede. Now, I'm sure most listeners know what the Calgary Stampede is, but I know that there's quite a few of you guys in the United States that listen as well. If you have not been to the Calgary Stampede, though, it is for sure the embodiment, I guess you could say, of the West. It's a great festival, a lot of fun, usually a week long in July. Where you can really come together. There's pancake breakfasts and, rodeos and rides and animals and basically you name it, it's going to be here. Often, it's been coined the greatest outdoor show on earth. And, I think that's really where WestJet gains their advantage in being this, partner airline, is that they really are focused on getting people to the Stampede and making sure that flights are available to you, whether you're in the United States or you're in Canada, or even if you're in Europe or anywhere like that. And so, the Calgary Stampede, really, the CEO of WestJet here, I'll quote him, just looking at the article here. He says, "The Calgary Stampede is an integral to our city's vibrant identity, bringing visitors from around the country and the world together for 10 days in the heart of Western Canada." And that's exactly right. I think that you really see so much fun. You get to see, obviously, all the cowboy boots and belt buckles. I'll be honest, I think you see a lot of people that have never worn cowboy boots or belt buckles because they're nice and shiny and they show up at the Stampede, but that's okay. Everyone still has a really, really good time. The CEO of the Calgary Stampede organization, Joel Cowley, had said that they're proud to partner with a company who shares our values and commitment to investing in the rich history and future of our local community. Obviously, WestJet being a Calgary-based airline, that's a really huge partnership for them and something that is really, really exciting to see being renewed for 5 more years. A little bit more about Stampede for those that are interested. They bring about 1,200 businesses between hospitality and tourism, etc., and everyone together. There's over 4 million guests from every corner of the world that comes to Calgary, and it's crazy to hear that number when you think that Calgary is only about 1.5 million people, and WestJet has been a key partner in that work for 2 decades, and so the support that they're moving forward with, I think, is going to continue this long-standing relationship, long-standing partnership that's mutually beneficial for both parties. Obviously, WestJet is bringing people via air travel from all across North America and the world, and Calgary Stampede gets a little bit of a benefit from that as well. Moving on to another story. This one is a bit more on the U.S. side. However, we might see it move over to Canada if it does pass. There's for sure a bit of topics on both sides, and that is actually that you may see some older pilots in the cockpit soon. As currently, you have to retire within the commercial aviation space at 65, but there was a bill brought in called the Let Experienced Pilots Fly Act, and that would raise the mandatory retirement age from 65 up to 67. And so, obviously, the main reason for this bill, Senator Joe Manchin from West Virginia had introduced the bipartisan act, and it, obviously going over, hey, our country, continues to face a severe pilot shortage, and that's, led to a recent spike in flight cancellation delays, disrupting travel plans for millions of Americans. And so with that, they're trying to say, hey, maybe we should raise this age so that there's not so many pilots forced to retire. The number of forced retirements coming up is actually quite scary for the aviation sector, I would say, in all of North America. And whether raising it 2 years is going to be enough or not, I think is less so the question, and more so I think they need to focus on getting newer, younger pilots into the role, simply because all you're going to do is kick the can down the road by 2 years, at least in my eyes, and cause even more issues down the road. The ALPA, obviously the union that has recently done this WestJet deal and represents pilots all across North America. The president, Captain Jason Ambrosi, stated, "This legislation is a solution in search of a problem. Raising the retirement age would only increase costs for airlines, worsen the post-COVID training backlog by using much-needed training cycles to train pilots over 65, who would therefore be limited to domestic operations, and introduce unnecessary risks to passengers and crew alike." And then he later goes on to say, that's kind of their reasoning why a lot of the major airlines and a significant majority of pilots and passengers oppose this move. And so I think that we'll see, obviously, now within the U.S. government as it moves through its lawmaking process, if this actually gets passed or if it does get shut down. Again, obviously, there will be a lot of lobbying, I would say, on both sides of the aisle of people saying we need this passed and people saying there's no way this should ever even be a thing. The National Air Carrier Association, though, did say that they expect a shortfall of 28,000 pilots by the end of the decade. And if you want to put that number into perspective, that's a large percentage of pilots that they're going to be losing. And the majority of those, obviously, are forced retirement issues. So what will happen in the future? I don't know. I'm not a fortune teller by any means. So we'll have to continue looking every single day at the news, see if anything else comes up, and definitely be keeping everyone here in the loop. But with that said, looks like that's about all the time we've got for today's episode. Again, just want to thank you so much for listening to Just Plain Fun. It's been so great to interact with everybody. Really enjoying that piece of it, and look forward to hitting double digits likely next week with another podcast. If you do want to find me on Twitter, though, I do love hearing from you. You can find me. I'm at Just Plain Fun 380. I also have a YouTube channel that's Just Plain Fun A380. So, with that, be sure to subscribe to your favorite podcast app player. That way you're never going to miss a future episode. It was great talking to you again today, and hope you enjoy the rest of your weekend, everyone. Have a great week. All right, bye.